First of all, we recall that the Pilot model began to be produced in America by Honda in 2002 and was originally conceived as a kind of affordable version of the Acura MDX mid-size crossover. The novelty turned out to be noticeably larger than the younger Honda CR-V. It had 7 seats, V-engines, and rich equipment. It differed from Acura in a more rectangular and spacious body and fewer electric drives inside. At the same time, the platform, transmission, drive, and motor were exactly the same. It is interesting that many experts on used cars subsequently recommended the Pilot in every possible way and were advised to refuse to purchase the MDX. In 2006, the general pursuit of external brutality led to restyling and refinement of the engine, and in 2008 there was a radical change of generations. It led to a complete break with the MDX in terms of design, and if in the first generation some common features were still noticeable, then in the second, even with the strong desire, it was impossible to find them. At the same time, technically, the cars were again as close as possible, except perhaps for the engine. The MDX had a 3.7-liter engine. In 2012, there was a light facelift with a new bumper and taillights. In 2013, another one, which was mainly related to equipment. A rear-view camera and an infotainment system with an 8-inch monitor and a slightly confusing menu system appeared on the list of standard equipment. The last, third-generation Honda Pilot, released in 2016, was completely redrawn in appearance, and its representatives will become the heroes of this column in a couple of years. In the meantime, you can buy an excellent version of the second generation, produced from 2008 to 2015. So, let's start with the most important thing, with motors. The sore point of the J35Z4 with VCM was the rapid and sometimes sudden wear of the camshafts. Engine timing, belt, with a chain replacement interval of 100,000 kilometers, valves require adjustment at least once every 50,000 kilometers. Premature camshafts always wear out in the head that is ahead of the car, and replacement repairs cost at least 50,000 rubles with parts and labor. The reason is most often called oil starvation, but what caused the starvation depends on the specific car. Most often, this occurs from a second congenital disease, excessive consumption of oil. Cars came to the services that burned 2 to 3 liters of oil per 10,000 kilometers. Such symptoms are treated at least by replacing the rings, and even the piston group with connecting rod bearings. Sometimes the VCM cylinder deactivation unit, or rather, its drive system, is to blame. In addition, oil from it drips onto the generator, gradually disabling it. The replacement cost is 20,000 rubles. An unpleasant surprise may be the wear of the engine mounts. There are 4 of them. Those on the sides are ordinary silent blocks of 7,000 each, but those that are front and rear are hydraulic, cost 35,000 each. Symptom: a knock during acceleration and heavy braking, but, in general, it is difficult to diagnose them, and more often they just stumble on faulty pads while doing something to the motor. The starter may squeal. Why is unknown. You can replace the retractor, or you can sprinkle it with a Vidash or do nothing at all and wait until the squeal passes. The worst thing about the second-generation transmission is that the selector lever from its noble place next to the steering column has moved almost to the floor. Or rather, of course, on the center console, but still. As for the gearbox itself, and the Honda Pilot had a 5-speed gearbox at that time, there were no serious and frequent problems with it. Change the oil and filter occasionally. Keep the radiator clean. Do not switch to neutral again in traffic jams, and everything will be fine up to 200,000 miles. After that, you should inspect the supply pipe to the radiator of the oil cooling system, and if it is covered with the characteristic coating, replace it, which will cost a couple of thousand rubles. No less reliable is the VTM for all-wheel drive system. Its peculiarity is that the rear axle shafts are connected to the cardan through a non-differential gearbox using a pair of multi-plate clutches. 1 per axle. The system is made and developed by BorgWarner and is considered the most advanced. Occasionally, if the oil is not changed in time, problems arise in severe frosts. The oil change interval is from 40,000 kilometers, but in difficult operating conditions it is better to reduce it to 30. The failure looks like the inability to turn on the all-wheel drive. The car will still move, because there will be traction on the front axle, and you can cure the problem by simply restarting the engine after a couple of kilometers. The scourge of all-wheel drive Honda, the drive shaft, did not bypass the Pilot either. Vibration, knocking of the crosses, noise and rattle from the outboard required the replacement of the shaft, which at the official service reaches 100,000 rubles, and in the garage with the replacement of the crosses and the selection of bearings, you can get by with 10,000. In any case, if the operation was not accompanied by blows to the shaft, it will last 100,000 kilometers without problems. The chassis of the Honda Pilot wears out as quickly as you load the crossover. Literally. If, for example, you regularly ride an 8, and even carry a boat motor with you with the boat and stew for a couple of weeks and on broken roads, the rear shock absorbers will be enough for the season. There are 30 to 35,000 silent front levers, and they cost 25,000 rubles together with the lever. This is if OEM, original equipment manufacturer, or 6 to 9,000 if it is non-original or repaired and without a lever. Following the rear shock absorbers, the wheel bearings die and the springs sag. And in that exact order. By 100,000 mileage, the wheels can stand as a house, and the wallet can lose weight by 20,000 rubles. Nothing will bother you for a long time. Even ball bearings with 100,000 mileage are not such a rare case. And if the car seems harsh, change the tires. There are a lot of creaky plastics, creaky leather, and a grinding stove motor in the cabin. But all this after 100,000 run. As well as dimmed headlights, chips on the varnish, which is thin in Japanese and weakly holds a blow. But corrosion is rare, except that the fifth door will bloom along the trailing edge, and from the inside. Sometimes the owner notices this only when the lock button fails. Honda Pilot captivates not only with its comfort and colossal capacity, but also with its driving characteristics, coupled with efficiency. Especially on the highway, where the VCM cylinder deactivation mechanism takes over. And the fact that 8 fully grown people can fit in the cabin and there is still some luggage space left makes the Pilot a desirable acquisition for those who have unsuccessfully searched for a minibus with off-road capabilities. Of course, traditionally for Honda, these opportunities are limited to the beach and dry weather, but it's still better than not even getting to it. There are not so many offers on the Russian secondary market, and new ones are probably not expected. So if you're looking for a big, comfortable crossover for not that much money, the Pilot is a very interesting option.